Well, we're still in July, aren't we? And we follow the Centers for Spiritual Living theme for the year and for the month, and then we make up our own talks for the weekly presentation. So the theme for the year is spirituality in action. For July, it's advocate for freedom of thought. And the value for the month is creativity. We need to get creative about how we help ourselves and others come into a greater expression of freedom of thought, freedom of aliveness, and it's done creatively. So today is Return to the Source. And we'll start out with a quotation from Thomas Troward. If we realize that all visible things must have their origin in spirit, then the whole creation around us is a standing evidence that the starting point of all things is in thought, images, or ideas. For no other action than the formation of such images can be conceived of spirit prior to its manifestation in matter. God, spirit, first cause. This is the originating source of all life. And everything begins with an idea. Everything begins with a mental equivalent, a spiritual prototype. And so when we realize that we have a power within us that's greater than many people even become aware of for a while, then somebody came back from Florida. Hi, nice to see you. They came from Florida too. But when we realize that everything begins within, that's why our creative imagination is so important. It's powerful. And sometimes we use that creative imagination in a way that's not helpful. Do you ever notice that? Have you ever experienced that in your own life? And it's like, oops, what was I thinking? Well, not what I wanted to be thinking, obviously, because that wasn't the result that I wanted to see. So whatever is currently taking place in our lives began as an idea. Everything begins as an idea in mind, whether it's a universal mind and planets come about and mountains and rivers and seas and animals and people and so forth, or if it's in our individual lives where we are using that same co-creative power, it begins with our idea. It begins with our choice. Well, we're so much about choice, so much about freedom of thought. So are you ready for a new idea? Yeah. Yesterday, wasn't that exciting? Yesterday was the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11, where Neil Armstrong took his first step on the moon, followed shortly afterwards by Buzz Aldrin. And, you know, it's amazing to me because I remember as a kid, remember Buck Rogers? Remember Dick Tracy and two-way radio watches, and I mean, who ever heard of such a thing? And who could imagine that there'd be moon travel or outer space travel or somebody actually walking on the moon? It was amazing, you know, and that was, as a kid for me, that was like 20 years ago or so, I said or so. And now, I mean, yesterday was such an amazing celebration. 50 years. Do you remember where you were? Some of you weren't here yet. But your mother and father and grandparents told you the stories, right? Wow. Last night, my beloved family and Reverend Mike and I were at the White Dog for dinner, had a wonderful time. And my beloved son-in-law told, well, he is. He told me about the time that he and his family came here from Sweden. He was 16 years old. And it just captured my heart, the way he told me about his feelings when they were coming into the New York harbor. And he went up to the very top of the ship all by himself to make sure, I'm getting beklempt here, that he could see the Statue of Liberty for the very first time, for real. advocate for freedom of thought. I mean, this family, and by the way, he planted the seed in that family. I've heard these stories because he would say, tell me if I get this wrong. You can come up here and take over if you'd like, Bruno. But he knew that his father had been here to America. And so Bruno wanted the whole family to move here. And so at the dinner table, he would say, Papa, Father, whatever you say in Swedish, tell me about America. Over and over again until he planted that seed, and ultimately they all came. Thank you. It took you 6 months. That's not very long. He's powerful. And when I officiated at their marriage in California, not knowing that they were going to move to Florida, and kept thinking every year they were coming back, and they didn't. But now we're all on the same coast. Thank you very much. When they came to Florida, they had a couple of ideas about what kind of business they wanted to have, because they were very successful in California. They were going to do this, they were going to do that. The next thing they knew, they had a new idea. This is what happens with a new idea. Their new idea was a flooring company. They created the most successful, maybe the largest flooring company in South Florida. And this is something else that touches my heart deeply. And that is that they began hiring Brazilians, bringing them up here. Some of them attained citizenship. And so they loved the idea of people coming to this wonderful country. A new idea. Whether we're walking on the moon or creating something wonderful, especially something that not only serves us and our families, but creates something beautiful for a lot of other people, we need new ideas. We have the ability to access infinite wisdom. Creative, intelligent activity is alive within each one of us. What are we doing with it? How are we utilizing it for good to make ourselves more comfortable, healthier, happier, wiser, more prosperous, more loving, more compassionate, more creative? And how are we using it to make a difference in our worlds? All potential manifest good begins at the great beginning. There is this recreation. There's energy everywhere. How are we using this divine energy? It is divine. It is powerful. And we have infinite possibilities. How are we using them? How are we going about our daily business of the day, asking quietly within ourselves of our source each day, what is mine to do today? What is mine to do? What is a new idea for myself, for my loved ones, for my community, for my family, for my spiritual family, for the world itself? Just as the divine is forever bringing new forms into being, so are you and I, constantly going back to the starting point, the source, all creation. So it's essential that we leave the outer picture and not get too caught up in it. Whether it happens to be a misunderstanding with a loved one, whether it is something that's shown up in our lives that's not so pleasant and we're getting our knickers in a knot over it, no matter what's going on in our personal lives or in the world, we need to leave the outer picture long enough to create a new one. Because if we continue with the energy that might be negative about something that's shown up in our lives or in the world, you know what we do? We create more of it. And that's not a very wise or intelligent or loving or compassionate use of this wonderful creative intelligent activity that we are given. We all have it. Nobody came into this world without the ability to co-create. And that's exactly what we're doing, is co-creating by going back to source, going back to the starting point. It's essential that we come back where the new beginning, a new thought we know is going to produce a new effect. You know that we're very much in favor of everyone having a place at the table in this world. We're very much in favor of people loving each other, getting along with one another, and not excluding anyone. You know that Reverend Mike and I are very involved in our interfaith movement here. And we learned that there is an interfaith movement taking place in El Paso next weekend. And we wanted so much to be there. It wouldn't work for us to get down there. We tried airline schedules, everything, just to be a stand for goodness, to be a stand for love, to be a stand for peace. So we are that. We're going to do that from right here. It's important that we care enough about every person in this world that we want people to be treated compassionately, fairly, lovingly, wisely. We're a stand for that. It's not political. It's moral. It's just right. And I invite you to join me in knowing that there is a way. We get a new thought. There is a way. There's a way to end hunger in the world. We need a new thought about that. We need a new idea and some passion that goes along with it. It's possible to end strife in the world. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I know it is not going to happen until we get a new idea about it. To dream a new dream for this world, and then to put some legs under that dream, and to walk tall in our principle, to know that there really is enough for all, that it is not appropriate to demean anyone or to treat anyone as if they're from a different class. We're all from a very high class. We all came from Source. We all came from Spirit. So we use the universal creative process correctly when we return to first cause as we begin our mental, physical, spiritual work. We begin our mental, spiritual work in order to have beautiful things emerge in our manifest lives. Don't you love the idea of having more peace and love and compassion in your homes, in your neighborhoods, and in the world? Don't you love the idea of being healthier and having everybody that you meet be healthier as well? Because I love that the unimpeachable wholeness of the universe is the underlying reality of this universe, and each and every one of us can align with that and become whole as we were created to be. Don't you love the idea of creating a new idea about prosperity so that you have all that you need and enough to share and enough to spare, and you feel the freedom of allowing this divine circulation of good to take place in your life and to benefit everyone that you meet? Don't you love the idea of greater creativity in your life so that whether it's your work or your avocation or your play or a new idea that you have, that you can be co-creative and bring the most marvelous things into your life and into the world itself? See, there isn't any limit. All the love, all the prosperity, all the health, and all the creativity is available to us. We just need to step up to it because we're looking down there in the mud. And by the way, the mud is okay because it's from the mud that the lotus grows, right? Right. No mud, no lotus. And there are times that we feel like our lives are kind of muddy. Have you ever had that experience? That's okay. Let's not be so concerned if we're going through something difficult or through something painful or through something we just don't understand. Let's know that the operative word is through. We're moving through it and allowing something more wonderful to emerge. And when we do that, then we feel stronger And we feel more connected with other people who've also had such experiences. When we return to Source, we're actually returning to the authentic self. Because each one of us was created in the image and likeness. That doesn't mean looking like, it means being the same. Life, love, light, peace, power, beauty, and joy are all the attributes of spirit. And guess what? They all reside within each one of us too, because we were created whole and complete out of that same expression of light. So when we return to Source, we're returning to our true self. We're not pretending to be something we're not. We are the authentic self. And where we are and who we are is perfectly fine at this moment. And whether or not you ever became a prima ballerina, are there any out here? No? You did, yes. Tina the ballerina. Or whether or not you ever became the CEO of your company, you are still you. And you happens to be fabulous. We can find a mature acceptance of the self right where we are. I want to read this to you from Derek Walcott called Love After Love. The time will come when with elation you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will be at the other's welcome and say, sit here, eat. You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit, feast on your life. I love that. Feast on your life. It's time that we awaken to the truth that this is a banquet. But like any good banquet, you got to get up and help yourself. That means it's essential that we change our minds about things and stop focusing on what's wrong and what isn't working and decide to be brave enough and courageous enough, from the heart, courageous enough to have a new idea about yourself, about your loved ones, about your community, about the people in your world. Next Sunday, for instance, we have we're having fun calling the Big Leap, where we are coming together after our celebration on Sunday to create something brand new in our consciousness as a spiritual family. I can hardly wait. Well, I will, because I have a lot of other wonderful things to do in between. But we're coming together as we do individually, connecting with Source, to create something even more magnificent than we've ever known before. I'm excited about that. Get excited! Because you have the power, more power than anyone may have ever told you as you were growing up. It's the power of Source, which is why we return there often. Feast on your life. Will you say with me, I willingly return to the source of my life. For every inspirational beginning. And so, my beloveds, beginneth our lesson. Thank you.